All right, Ariel, I kind of want to turn to you first just regarding what we know about this strike on this Hezbollah commander.
So the IDF confirmed that it eliminated Hezbollah's liaison to the Syrian army, Salman Nemer Jamaa, in a drone strike on a car that was making its way to the Damascus airport in the Syrian capital. Now, Jamaa was responsible for everything that had to do with Hezbollah activity in Syria, which is a lot because Syria is the weapons storage of Hezbollah, but also everything that has to do with coordination in other manners. Also, Hezbollah forces operating in Syria and the border crossings. Mainly, most of the cooperation was with weapon transfers, but it didn't just end there. And obviously, during this latest war, Jamaa had a key role in facilitating these weapons transfers via Syria. His elimination, obviously, he will be probably replaced like many of these Hezbollah officials, but this is another blow to Hezbollah in terms of the organizational know-how, the strong ties with Syria, the Syrian army, Syrian government officials. And so we see that despite shaky ceasefire in Lebanon, that doesn't have any effect on Israel's operations against Hezbollah in Syria. Now, regarding the ceasefire, there's reports coming out just the last couple minutes from Lebanon of also an Israeli airstrike in Mehaibeb, that's in southern Lebanon, also Israeli artillery shelling. So we see that these are, Hezbollah continues to test this ceasefire, test Israel's resolve in trying to go back to a lot of their terror infrastructure that was left behind, trying to reestablish their foothold in southern Lebanon. And what we see here is that also southern Lebanon, but also in Syria, this latest example, the IDF is not relenting despite this ongoing ceasefire.
Right, which of course begs a question then, you know, what is happening with the Lebanese army that is supposed to be moving in here and preventing this, right? What do we know?
I mean, this is a thing in process. I mean, the Lebanese army is not as strong as it is. The American general supervising part of those, as part of the ceasefires in Beirut, I think it was yesterday or maybe today. So this is a thing in process, and I think as Israelis, since we want the ceasefire, we have to let this thing in process works out. So
the question is, when does it go too far, right? When is a specific airstrike something that would be willing, that would essentially lead to the downfall of the truce?
Miscalculation, some fraction would shoot something, there would be too much damage, casualties, and things would go off the map. But we want the ceasefire, and we have to work it out smartly. We heard Katz, our Minister of Defense, promising that the next phase, because we kept this thin line, this very important line between Lebanese institution, Lebanese infrastructure, and Hezbollah. I don't think we need to break it down, but we promise that if things would go the wrong way, we'll do it, and this would mean that the ceasefire ends and then everything goes back. But the Syrian thing is an interesting also dilemma. Because even
I wanted to actually go back to Syria because I wanted to talk about, I mean, we were going to get to this a little bit later on, but the issue of Israel in all of this, right? The role that we can expect Israel to play given the increased fighting that we're now seeing in Syria, and whether or not this is going to allow for a vacuum for Israel to come in and perhaps target even more of the weapons infrastructure that Hezbollah, as you mentioned, has been maintaining in Syria, or if we're going to see Israel kind of just stay out of this for now.
I think Israel's position at this point, and Netanyahu said this today also, is that vis-a-vis the whole Hezbollah issue, it's going to be zero tolerance. They're no longer going to tolerate the Israeli word is raindrops, meaning every now and then drops of rockets landing on Israel. That includes, I think, zero tolerance of Syria operating as a super highway for Hezbollah rearming itself. But Israel kind of tried to do that already. At this point, I think we can expect Israel to basically hammer Hezbollah anytime there's anything resembling a violation of the ceasefire, including their efforts to rearm, but probably stay out of the war in Syria, because I think the great unmentionable about the whole 13-year-old Syrian war is that there is a lot of ambivalence in the world about Bashar Assad falling, butcher though he may be. The fact is Syria hasn't attacked Israel, not really, since 1973. And the rebels arrayed against him are not exactly the nice liberal rebels that want to do peace with Israel, but more likely some version of supporters of Al Qaeda, and
Right.
Israel cannot afford to have them in control of Assad's chemical weapons and sitting on Israel's Golan border.
So this is
All
really
right.
the dilemma, because in the end, Hezbollah was back. The moment Hezbollah was destroyed in the fashion that it was destroyed, then of course this gave way to those rebels to threaten
Absolutely.
Bashar.
Yeah.
So this is a real dilemma, because it's not clear how we play it. We don't want to play any civil war. We can play humanitarian aid as we did in the previous phase of the civil war. But we played 82 civil war in Lebanon, which was an easier geometry. We should never play it here.